Hi there. So let's get into Matthew 24. Now, Matthew 24, and I've done studies on this before. You can find them in the Through the Bible series when I was doing a preface to Revelation study that I'm still in the middle of. And we'll finish that at some point. He talks about the future. And a lot of the stuff he's talking about feels like right now. I mean, you can tell when the end times are coming. And he said, in other chapters and in other gospels, Jesus said, you can tell when it's going to come because you can tell when summer's coming because spring's coming, the trees are flowering, the fruit's going to bear, and you know it's coming. So let's jump over there. I highlighted this from the study I did months ago, but we'll get into it today. Jesus speaks about the future. As Jesus was leaving the temple grounds, his disciples pointed out to him the various temple buildings. But he responded, "Do you see all these buildings? I tell you the truth, they will be completely demolished. Not one stone will be left on top of another." Now that happened in 70 A.D. But Jesus is God, so he knows these things. Later, Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, "Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?" And they called it the end of the world. Jesus told them, "Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come." Yeah, we're right here, huh? "Then you will be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will all be hated all over the world because you are my followers. And many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that all nations will hear it. And then the end will come." Now, do you think everywhere in the world has heard it? I mean, about just about, Are there any nations that haven't had missionaries? And some of them openly reject them. And it says it will be worse for the ones that reject it than it was for Sodom and Gomorrah. And we know what happened there. Oh, yeah. Nation will go to war against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, earthquakes, fires. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. It's going to get worse, okay? Now, we could be anywhere in this right now. Let's continue. "The day is coming when you will see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration." Okay, now this is in Daniel 9:27, and he said this whole thing, it will be in the temple. And what people believe is the Antichrist will come, and he may or may not already be here. I mean, there's people that the Jews are calling, that are thinking this could be our Messiah, because they're still waiting for the Messiah to come. Okay. And this will be an object that is set up in the temple. Okay, the temple has not been rebuilt yet. Okay, they do have the red heifers, which is the sacrifice to the temple. They're being groomed right now. The temple plans are there. But the Antichrist will set himself up in the temple once it's rebuilt. And because he's not omnipresent, even though he'll claim to be God, he'll set up an effigy. They're saying a statue that he'll give life to, so it can speak and talk, and the people will worship that. Before they were saying, he could make a rock come to life, a statue, but you're looking about AI and robots. It could easily be done now through artificial intelligence. Anyway, this sacrilegious object that causes desecration will be standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down to the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days. And pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath, for there will be a greater anguish than at any time since the world began. And I highlighted that. And it will never be so great again. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. I see people say this is a rapture, and it could well be the rapture, okay? A rapture is, if you follow that, the rapture comes before the second coming. Or the days themselves could be shortened, just for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then if anyone tells you, look, here is a Messiah, or there he is, don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I've warned you about this ahead of time. Now, we haven't seen a lot of people, claiming to be the Messiah. There's plenty of false prophets out there. Oh, my goodness. Claim to be preaching the word, but they're not preaching the word. They're preaching what people want to hear. This says an excellent verse in 2 Timothy that talks about how they will preach what people want to hear and what tickles their ears and makes them feel good. The doctrine of me instead of the doctrine of he. So he says, I warned you about this ahead of time. So if someone tells you, look, the Messiah is out in the desert, don't bother to go and look. Or look, he is hiding here, don't believe it. For as the lightning flashes in the east and shines to the west, so it will be when the Son of Man comes. Just as the gathering of vultures shows there is a carcass nearby, so these signs will indicate that the end is near. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Okay. We haven't seen this stuff, but you can tell it's coming. I mean, you can just feel it. I've, been a Christian for almost 60 years, and I've never felt so close to something happening as I do now. But he said it'll be worse than it has ever been. For there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. Man. Can you imagine getting worse than it is now? Well, they say it will be. That's hard. Okay, verse 30. And then at last the sign of the Son of Man is coming will appear in the heavens, and there will be deep mourning among the peoples of the earth, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with the mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world. That's what I'm looking forward to right there. From the farthest ends of earth and heaven. Earth and heaven. So, and it tells you that the people that have gone before will be drawn in as well. The dead and the living. Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. I was talking about this. When the branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth. This generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Now, when he says generation, age, or this nation, it can be, and I did did some research on this generation. He's not talking about his disciples will live until all this happens. He was talking about, in the whole previous, he's talking about what will happen in the future. And when all this stuff is happening in the future, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Okay? Could be the nation of Israel. He could be talking about us. Okay? This generation. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. However, no one knows the day or hour when these things will happen. Not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. So Jesus knows it will happen. He doesn't know when. Only the Father knows. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes, when we least expect it. Okay, we're expecting it now, but as Christians, we're supposed to be ready, Keep oil in our lamps. Two men will be working together in the field. One will be taken, the other left. Two women will be grinding flour at the mill. One will be taken and the other left. So you too must keep watch, for you don't know when the day of our Lord is coming. Understand this. If a homeowner knew exactly when a burglar was coming, he would keep watch and not permit his house to be broken into. You must also be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put that servant in charge of all he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks my master won't be back for a while, and he begins beating the other servants, partying and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected and will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Don't think, well, he's not coming. The temple's not built yet, so he's not coming. He won't come for at least a couple of years. It'll take a couple of years for the temple to be built and all this stuff to happen. You don't know that. You don't know that. Okay? And that was 24. And we're at 12 minutes. I think we're gonna stop there. I kind of want to let that sink in. We can go back over the highlighted stuff, which is a lot. You also must be ready all the time, for the Son of Man will come when least expected. Yeah. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. People enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah enters his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. Now, Noah, they lived a long time before the flood. And some people say it's because the water was in the atmosphere, all of it, and it filtered out the sunlight, so they lived a lot longer. And it didn't rain back then, it just misted all the time, okay? And it took Noah 125 years to build that boat, and people were laughing at him and talking about him, and, like I said, getting married and having banquets and not thinking about it, and he was telling them the whole time, 125 years. Okay, and when the flood came, God released all the water in the atmosphere, and it came down at one time. It took 40 days and nights for all the water to fall out of the atmosphere and flood the earth. It was instant. It was a huge flood, okay? And once it flooded, once the waters ran off and receded into the valleys and the oceans, there were always seas, there were fish, okay, but they filled up and created the continents. Okay, I personally believe places like the Grand Canyon was formed in as little as 2 weeks. And that's been proven. You could look that up. There's a movie out called Genesis, which is amazing. But yeah, all this stuff happened. And you could go to the highest, like Mount McKinley, the highest mountain in America, the very top. It's like 14,000 feet high. You'll find seashells up there and fossils of sea animals. So the water was covering the entire earth. Anyways, these people had plenty of time, okay? But I didn't believe him. And it'll be the same now. People are like, yeah, right. No one knows the day or hour when these things will happen. Not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. What's that little highlight on 36? Some manuscripts do not include or the Son himself. Okay. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. That's been used a lot. Okay. And I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Meaning, the nation of Israel, Okay. And this is second coming. This is great. He will send out his angels with a mighty blast of a trumpet, and they will gather his chosen ones from all over the world, from the farthest ends of earth and heaven. Earth and heaven, which tells you the dead and the living will be called up at once, gathered up by the angels. That'll be great. And this, we haven't seen this yet. Immediately after the anguish of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will give no light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. What's that highlight on 29? Oh, Isaiah, Joel. Yeah. If anyone tells you the Messiah's here, the Messiah's there, don't believe it. When he comes back, everybody's going to know. Everybody's going to see him. There are no other Messiahs coming. Okay. And this, for there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. It doesn't say it will be shortened only for God's chosen ones. It says the time will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Okay. And we're going to get into Revelation after this, where it actually talks about timetables and when they come down, and it tells you how long this will go on. Okay. And in the beginning, highlighted a bunch of stuff here. Tell us when will this happen? Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many. And you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world. But all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come. Yeah. Then you'll be arrested, persecuted, and killed. You will be hated all over the world because you are my followers. That's happening now. That's never stopped happening, actually. Many will turn away from me and betray and hate each other. Many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. Sin will be rampant everywhere, and the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved, and the good news about the kingdom will be preached throughout the whole world so that all nations will hear it, and then the end will come. So, that's Matthew 24. You could do studies for months on this one chapter. And when we finish the Revelation studies, we'll probably go back and highlight parts of Matthew and parts of Daniel and parts of Isaiah. We're going to talk about it. So, that's 24. So, the next time we'll get into 25 and the rest, the bad parts where he gets crucified and stuff. But until next time, keep reading, keep studying, read out loud. Ask the Spirit for help, always. He's always there. See you next time.